Airports always make me anxious. Not the flying, the people, the rushing, the noise, the pressure to move fast, even when you're carrying your whole life in 2 suitcases and a backpack with crushed snacks at the bottom. But that morning felt worse. My 3-year-old son Noah clung to my leg like he sensed the day was going to challenge me more than usual. He didn't cry. He just looked up at me with those huge brown eyes, trusting me completely. "I'm right here, baby," I said softly. "Mommy's got you." I had no idea that the real challenge wasn't even mine. Not yet. Our flight was boarding in 15 minutes. I checked my ticket again. 14C. Not great, not terrible. Close enough to the aisle that I could move if no one needed the bathroom, but far enough from the middle that I wouldn't feel trapped. We walked toward the gate, and that's when I heard it. No, felt it. A piercing, heart-wrenching baby scream. Heads snapped. People groaned. A man muttered, "Great, that's on our flight." I turned. A young dad, maybe early 30s, stood near the seating area bouncing a red-faced baby who looked seconds away from meltdown number 2. His backpack was half open, his shirt was wrinkled, the baby's diaper bag was hanging by one strap, and his eyes were pure panic. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, maybe weeks. The baby wailed louder, and he whispered frantically, "Please, buddy, please, not now, please." Passengers stared, some with irritation, some with pity, most with judgment. I felt something in me twist, because I knew that look. I had been that look. At 2 a.m., at the grocery store, at doctor's appointments, in parking lots. When you feel like you're failing and everyone is watching, I started walking toward them before I fully decided to do. "Hi," I said gently. "Rough morning?" He looked up at me, startled, and then gave a humorless laugh. "Is that obvious?" The screaming gave a tiny hint. Despite everything, he cracked a small smile. The baby screamed louder. Noah peeked out from behind me, curious. "What's his name?" The dad said, bouncing him. "Evan. He usually sleeps through flights. Today, he's not." I tilted my head. "He hungry?" "No, he just ate." "Wet?" "Nope." "Teething?" He exhaled sharply. "Unfortunately." Ah, that explained everything. Before I could offer anything else, the boarding announcement came over the speakers.
Flight 2378 to Denver is now boarding all passengers traveling with young children. That was us. The dad grabbed the diaper bag, but the strap slipped and everything spilled out. Pacifiers, wipes, a bottle, a change of clothes, a small stuffed giraffe. He closed his eyes, shoulders shaking just a bit. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "I'm so sorry." He wasn't apologizing to me. He was apologizing to the universe. I crouched and helped him gather everything. "No need to be sorry," I said softly. "You're doing everything you can." He hesitated, then whispered, "I'm doing this alone. His mom, she passed right after he was born." My heart clenched. I reached out, touched his arm gently. "Then you're doing more than enough." He swallowed hard. "Thank you." We boarded. And because fate has a sense of humor, or irony, or cruelty, my seat was 14C. His was 14A. He stared at his ticket, then at me. "You're kidding," he breathed. "Nope." We stepped aside to let an older man into the middle seat, 14B. He groaned as he sat down, glaring at the baby like the kid owed him money. This would be fun. The plane filled. The air got stuffy. Evan's crying grew more frantic. His little fists reached out as if begging someone, anyone, to make it stop. The dad tried everything. Rocking, shushing, walking the aisle, bouncing. Nothing worked. People began to shift uncomfortably. A woman across the aisle whispered loudly, "He should have stayed home." A man behind me muttered, "Babies shouldn't be on planes." And another voice said, "Can't he shut that kid up?" My blood boiled. Not because of the baby, because of them. The father sank into his seat, face red with embarrassment. He held Evan close, whispering over and over, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The baby screamed until it hurt my chest. I turned to the dad. Can I try something? I asked gently. He blinked, stunned. You want to, after all this? I've been there. Let me help. Halfway through stories like these, people love getting pulled in with powerful stories. So right now is the perfect moment for you watching to hit that subscribe button for Scarlight Stories, because trust me, you're not going to believe what happens next.
He stared at me, desperate. "Please," he whispered, "whatever you can." I held out my arms. "Come here, sweetheart," I whispered to Evan. The dad hesitated, only a second, then transferred the baby into my arms. And what happened next? Nobody expected it. Not him, not the irritated passengers, not even me. The moment Evan touched my shoulder, he stopped crying, instantly, like someone hit a mute button. The entire section of the plane went dead silent. The dad's mouth fell open. The man in the middle seat gawked. Someone behind me said, "No freaking way!" But that wasn't the surprising part. The surprising part was that Evan curled into me like he already knew me, like he remembered me, like I was someone he'd been searching for. I felt chills run down my spine. The dad swallowed hard. How did you do that?" I opened my mouth to answer, but I didn't get the chance, because in that moment, Evan looked up at me with the same exact eyes as someone I hadn't seen in years. Someone who left my life so suddenly it took months to breathe normally again. Someone I never told anyone about. My stomach dropped. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be possible. But it was. Because the single dad, the one sitting beside me, watching me hold his baby, I recognized him now, and he had no idea who I was. The baby's scream hit a new octave, sharp, desperate, almost panicked. And the dad looked like he was seconds from breaking. Not crying, breaking. His knee bounced uncontrollably. His hand shook as he held the bottle. His eyes, red, tired, frantic, flicked around the plane, as if searching for an escape door that didn't exist. And the worst part? No one was helping him at all. Row after row, people sighed dramatically, rolled their eyes, or whispered complaints loud enough for him to hear. He should have stayed home. This is why babies shouldn't be on planes. God, can you shut the child up? The dad kept whispering, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," like an apology might magically mute a terrified infant. I felt anger crawl up my spine. Not at the dad, not at the baby, but at everyone else. Because I'd been that parent once. The one everyone stared at like a problem instead of a person. I took a breath, unbuckled my seatbelt, and turned fully to him. "Can I help?" I asked softly. He looked up, startled and embarrassed. You don't have to. I've got it. His voice cracked. "I don't know what I'm doing." That sentence dissolved every barrier between us. I reached out my hand slowly, so he knew he had a choice. "May I hold her?" He hesitated, not out of distrust, but fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of making the wrong decision. "She's been crying for almost an hour," he whispered. "Nothing works. She won't eat, won't sleep, won't settle. I think she hates flying. Or she hates me." "She doesn't hate you," I said softly. "She's overwhelmed, and you're doing everything right." He swallowed, voice trembling. "I'm not her mom. I'm trying, but I don't know what she needs." His hands shook as he lifted her toward me. And right there, in the shaky transfer of that tiny girl into my arms, I felt the weight of everything he carried alone. The baby, instantly sensing new arms, hiccuped, then screamed again. I hummed gently in response. My son, years ago, used to have the same kind of scream. He's older now, calmer, but those memories live under my skin like old scars. I positioned her upright against my chest, rubbing soothing circles on her back. She wailed into my shoulder. But it wasn't an in-pain cry. It was an, I don't know what's happening and I need someone grounded cry. It's okay, I whispered, bouncing slightly. I've got you. The dad watched like I was performing surgery. Do you have kids? He asked, voice small. One, a boy, 8 years old now. But when he was a baby, he screamed exactly like this anytime he was overstimulated. He exhaled shakily. Is that what this is? Overstimulation? Absolutely. The baby's cry softened to a whimper. The dad's eyes widened. How did you do that? Magic, I joked gently. Mom magic, the kind that comes from years of making mistakes and surviving them. He let out an unexpected laugh, the first I'd heard from him. I wasn't magic, of course. I just recognized the exhaustion of a new parent trying so hard they were burning themselves alive. The baby pressed her cheek against my collarbone and sobbed softer, her little fist grasping my shirt like she was begging me not to let go. It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe. The dad's breathing slowed, like my calm was contagious. And for a moment, we were a strange little team. A man drowning quietly, and a woman who remembered exactly what drowning felt like. The flight attendant walked by, paused, and smiled. Whatever you're doing, it's working, she whispered. The dad rubbed the back of his neck. I swear I tried everything, he murmured. Rocking, bouncing, shushing, pacing. I even sang to her, badly. What song? I asked. He blushed. You are my sunshine, but I forgot the words halfway through. Classic new dad move, I said. He exhaled a shaky laugh. The baby hiccuped again, then finally settled into small sniffles. Her breathing slowed, her body relaxed. A miracle on a plane at 35,000 feet. That's when he finally said it. I'm not used to doing this alone. My heart squeezed. Where's her mother? I asked gently. His gaze dropped to his hands. She passed away 3 months ago. The bottom fell out of my stomach. Oh, God. I swallowed, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry. He nodded once, like the movement physically hurt. She had a difficult pregnancy, then complications, and then she was gone. He didn't cry. He didn't have to. The grief was written in every line of his face. I've been trying, he whispered. Trying to be both parents. Trying to figure everything out. But she always knew how to calm her. She knew all the tricks, the cues, the little things. He looked up at me, eyes glassy. I don't. You're learning, I said gently. And you're not failing. He shook his head. Everyone on this plane thinks I'm failing. No, I said, holding my ground. Everyone on this plane sees a man doing everything he can for his daughter. He stared at me, stunned, like he had never considered that possibility, like he'd only ever heard criticisms, not kindness. Halfway through the flight, the baby finally fell asleep in my arms, a deep, heavy, dream-filled sleep. He watched her, awe softening his features. She's beautiful, I whispered. He smiled, a sad, proud, broken smile. She looks like her mom. Even better, I said softly. She has you. He blinked rapidly. I haven't heard anything that kind in months. I wanted to reach out, put my hand on his, tell him he wasn't alone. Not really. Not anymore. But instead, I asked, "When was the last time you slept?" He laughed under his breath. "What month is it?" That answer told me everything I needed to know. And maybe that's when something shifted. Something I never expected. Something that changed the rest of that flight, the rest of that day, and honestly, the rest of my life. But that moment, the one where everything flipped, came next. And it was because of him. Because of what he whispered when he thought I couldn't hear. I don't think I've ever seen a man look so relieved and so terrified at the same time. When his baby finally stopped wailing, sleeping in my arms like she'd known me her whole life, the single dad just stared at me, stunned, as if I'd performed some kind of miracle. "Thank you," he whispered. His voice cracked. I don't know how you did that." I smiled softly, gently bouncing the baby against my chest. "I'm a mom. We're trained in chaos." He let out a breath, like he'd been holding it for hours. The cabin was finally calm. People who'd glared at him only minutes earlier were now giving awkward smiles, pretending they had never rolled their eyes or muttered under their breath. Humanity was funny that way. Impatient until someone else solved the inconvenience. He brushed a hand through his hair. "You must think I'm a complete disaster." "No, I think you're a dad doing his best." At that, his shoulders dropped, like no one had said those words to him in a long time. He reached for his daughter, but she whimpered in her sleep and clutched my shirt. He froze. "It's okay," I said. "Let her sleep. Trust me, a quiet baby on a plane is worth its weight in gold." He laughed softly, tired but genuine. "Then would you mind holding her a little longer?" He asked the question like he was afraid I'd say no, like asking for help was something he wasn't used to. I nodded. "Of course." For a moment, he just stared at me, like he was trying to place me, like there was something familiar about me he couldn't grasp. Then he rubbed his face. "I'm sorry if she scratched you earlier. She's been tired and off her routine, and this trip—" He cut himself off, swallowing hard. "This trip is complicated." I tilted my head. Complicated usually meant heartbreak, or loss, or something so heavy it didn't have words yet. I said softly, "You don't have to tell me, but I'm here if you do." He hesitated, then shook his head. "Maybe later." The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was warm, soft, safe. The kind of silence two people only managed when they'd both been through storms before. He leaned back in his seat, resting for the first time since boarding. I held his daughter close, feeling her tiny breath against my chest. Something about that moment made my heart ache. Not in a painful way, but in a way I hadn't felt since before my ex-husband walked out. Before parenting became a battlefield. Before I learned that strength often looks like breaking quietly where no one sees. I brushed a strand of hair off the baby's forehead. "You're a natural," he murmured, half asleep. "I've had practice." He opened one eye only slightly. "You have kids too?" I nodded. "Just one. My son. He's 6. "Where is he now?" "With my mom," I said. "First time I've left him overnight." He smiled gently. "You're doing okay with that?" I laughed, quiet, embarrassed. "No, I keep checking my phone every 10 minutes." He chuckled under his breath. "It gets easier." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah?" He hesitated. "Actually, no, not really." We both laughed softly, trying not to wake the baby. My throat tightened unexpectedly. This was the first time in years I'd talked to a man like this, with no expectations, no flirting, no fear. Just two exhausted parents trying to keep their heads above water. And the strange thing, it felt natural. Almost too natural. He closed his eyes again, letting the exhaustion pull him under, and I watched him, unable to look away. The way his jaw softened in sleep, the way his brow stayed slightly furrowed even while resting, the way his hand kept drifting toward the baby like he needed to make sure she was safe. There was something good in him, something gentle, something rare, something I wasn't sure I deserved anymore. But fate wasn't done with me yet, because 20 minutes later, just as the cabin had gone peaceful, just as the man beside me finally drifted into a deep sleep, the flight attendant appeared with a hesitant expression. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you." I smiled. "It's okay. What's wrong?" She glanced at the sleeping dad, then at the baby, then leaned closer. "There's someone in first class asking for you." I blinked. "Me? That must be a mistake." She shook her head. "He described you exactly. Said you have long brown hair, a gray sweater, and that you're holding a baby that's not yours." My heart dropped into my stomach. "What? Who is he?" She hesitated again. "He said he's your ex-husband?" My blood turned cold. I stiffened so suddenly the baby stirred. "No, he couldn't be here. He shouldn't know I was on this flight." I shook my head slowly, feeling my throat tighten. "No, I don't want to see him." The flight attendant nodded sympathetically. I figured. "I told him you were busy, but he insisted. He's emotional." Of course he was emotional. He always was. Loudly, dramatically, destructively. I swallowed. "Did he say what he wants?" She hesitated. "He said he wants to explain why he left." Pain lanced through my chest. After all these years? Now? The baby whimpered. I instinctively rocked her gently. The single dad beside me stirred awake. "Everything okay?" he mumbled. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just turbulence." But he frowned, sitting up straighter. "You sure?" His concern nearly broke me. "I'm fine," I whispered. Except I wasn't. Because suddenly my quiet flight had turned into a battlefield. My past was reaching for me again. My heart was pounding. And worst of all, the flight attendant leaned closer and whispered something that made my world stop. "Your ex-husband said he needs to see you before we land." I froze. "What? Why?" She swallowed. "He said, it's about your son." My breath vanished. My hands went cold, and the baby in my arms began to squirm, sensing the panic pulsing through me. The single dad reached over, gently steadying her with his hand. "What's wrong?" he whispered urgently. And this time, I couldn't hide it. The moment the plane landed, a strange stillness washed over the cabin. Maybe it was relief, maybe exhaustion, maybe the emotional crash after 2 hours of holding a stranger's baby like it was my own. But something inside me knew. This wasn't the end of the story. The baby, Milo, was sleeping peacefully on my chest, as if he had never cried at all. His tiny fingers curled around the fabric of my shirt, and I couldn't help staring at him, memorizing the warmth, the weight, the innocence. His father, Ethan, kept glancing at us with this look. Soft, amazed, grateful in a way that made my chest tighten. People began standing, pulling bags from overhead bins, gathering their things, but no one rushed me. A few even whispered kind words as they passed. "You were amazing with him. Thank you for helping. Some people are born mothers. That last comment caught me off guard. Born mothers. I swallowed hard. When the aisle cleared enough, I gently passed Milo back to Ethan. The baby fussed for a second, then settled against his father's chest, still holding on to a little piece of my shirt, like he didn't want to let go. Ethan's voice was quiet. Are you sure you're not secretly a baby whisperer? I laughed softly. I promise I don't usually walk onto planes and adopt crying infants. He blinked at me, something warm flickering in his eyes. I'm glad you broke the rule today. We stepped off the plane, moving slowly through the terminal, neither of us saying much. It was like we were suspended in some strange, gentle bubble. Two strangers connected by something heavier than coincidence. Outside the gate, families reunited, couples hugged, luggage wheels clicked across tile. The world felt louder, brighter, too normal for what had just happened. Ethan shifted Milo on his shoulder. He never calms like that. Not even at home, he said quietly. He's just tired, I said softly. But he shook his head. No, it was you. I tucked a piece of hair behind my ear to buy myself a second. Babies know when someone is calm, I said. They feel it. Or when someone cares, he said. I froze. The words hit a part of me I thought had closed permanently. A part that used to imagine a future with someone, raising kids together. A part that had been crushed when my ex left pregnant and alone, telling me I'd ruined his life. A part that had spent years building walls so nothing could get in again. I cleared my throat. Well, I'm glad I could help. But Ethan suddenly looked nervous, like he was debating something. If you're not in a hurry, can I... He paused, starting over. Can I buy you coffee? To say thank you. You completely saved my sanity on that plane. My heart thumped. But before I could answer, my daughter ran up from where my parents were waiting, her backpack bouncing. Mommy! I scooped her up, holding her tight. She smelled like crayons and vanilla yogurt, her usual combination. She giggled into my neck. I missed you. I kissed her cheek. I missed you more. When I looked up, Ethan was staring, not in a creepy way, but with this stunned softness. That's your daughter? My girl turned, waved at him, and said, Hi, I can draw horses. He laughed, truly laughed. She's adorable. I smiled, heartwarming. This is Chloe, I said proudly. Chloe squinted at him. Is that your baby? This is Milo, he said. She studied the sleeping infant seriously, the way only kids can, then leaned toward me and whispered loudly, Mommy, he's really cute. I felt my face heat. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, smiling awkwardly. My parents approached, greeting me, and I made introductions. For a moment, it felt like some strange, unexpected family scene. Warm, natural, too natural. Because as Milo stirred, letting out a soft cry, I instinctively reached a hand toward him, and he instantly grabbed my finger. My breath caught. Ethan noticed. He likes you, he said quietly. I swallowed. I like him too. Then he said something that made my heart twist.
You're the first person he's ever relaxed with. Even with me, it takes forever. My parents exchanged a glance. My mom raised an eyebrow, the kind that said, Who is this handsome man and why is he staring at you like that? I shook my head subtly. Do not start. But Ethan wasn't done. I know it's bold, he said, but I would really like to thank you properly. Coffee, lunch, whatever you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be today or soon, just someday. I stared at him. Part of me was tempted. Part of me wanted to run. Part of me was terrified of wanting anything at all. I opened my mouth. If you like stories like this one, full of heart, unexpected connections, and twists that make you feel something, make sure you subscribe to Scarlight Stories. And then closed it again, because Milo began crying. Loudly. Ethan panicked again, bouncing him gently. "I guess he's awake now," he said weakly. "He's hungry," I said without thinking. Ethan blinked. "How do you know?" "Because that's his hungry cry." He stared at me like I'd deciphered ancient hieroglyphics. "Can you—" He hesitated. "Would you hold him again while I get his bottle out?" My chest tightened. "Yes," I said. He handed Milo over. The baby relaxed instantly, sighing into my chest like he belonged there. Every person around us stopped to watch, even strangers passing by. Ethan whispered, voice cracking, "That's impossible." I rocked Milo gently. "It's not impossible," I murmured. "He just feels safe." I shouldn't have said that. Not because it wasn't true, but because the moment I said it, something in Ethan's eyes shifted, softened, opened, warmed, like a man recognizing a path he'd never considered but suddenly couldn't unsee. My parents stepped aside to give us space, exchanging looks that made me want to jump into the nearest trash can. I cleared my throat. "You have my number," I said, surprising myself. "If you want help. With him. Not anything else." "Anything else?" he repeated softly, smiling. I nearly died on the spot. "I mean, not like just for the baby." "It's okay," he said gently. "I understand." His voice was warm, warm enough to melt a piece of me I thought was frozen forever. Then he nodded. "I'll call." I held Milo closer for one last moment before handing him back. And as he reached for me with tiny hands, crying again, Ethan whispered,
"He already misses you." My heart cracked. I forced a smile. "I'll see you around." We parted ways. But as I watched him walk away, bouncing Milo, looking back one last time, something inside me whispered a truth I wasn't ready for. This wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something I never saw coming, something beautiful, something terrifying, something real. I don't know what I expected when we landed, maybe that everyone on the plane would rush off, eager to escape the chaos of a flight filled with hours of crying. But that's not what happened. People didn't rush. They lingered. They held doors open for us. They offered smiles instead of judgment. And more than one person said softly, "You did something beautiful up there." But the person who said it loudest was Benjamin. He adjusted the baby carrier on his chest and turned to me at the jet bridge, his eyes gentle, tired, and full of something that made my heart thud too loudly. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "No one has ever helped us like that." "You don't have to thank me," I replied, brushing hair behind my ear. "Your son just needed comfort. Anyone could have done it." He shook his head slowly. "No, anyone could have, but only you did." His words hit a place I'd been trying to hide, the place inside me that still felt alone, still felt like I was surviving motherhood by stitching myself together one exhausted day at a time. I cleared my throat and tried to lighten the moment. "Well, I've had practice," I joked. "My daughter didn't sleep more than 2 hours straight until she was almost 15 months old." Benjamin's lips parted in a soft laugh. "Then maybe you should write a book, or run a class, or maybe stay on this flight every week." His smile was teasing, but his eyes were earnest. Before I could think of a reply, baby Ethan fussed. Not crying, just that restless, needy little whimper babies make when they want the familiar arms they trust. Benjamin looked down at him. Then he looked back at me. "You know, even now," he said quietly, "he's calmer when you're near." My heart squeezed. I didn't mean to get attached. I didn't plan for this flight to change anything. I was just a single mother doing what mothers do, helping where they can. But something was happening here, something I didn't quite know how to name. We reached baggage claim, and as the carousel began to turn, I pulled my daughter, Emma, closer. She was sleepy from the long flight, her head leaning against my shoulder, her curls sticking to her forehead. Benjamin watched her with warm eyes. He said, "She's amazing." I whispered, "She's my everything." He nodded. He said, "I can see that." We stood there a moment, the silence comfortable instead of awkward.
"You know," he said hesitantly, "I would like to repay you somehow. Maybe dinner or coffee or even just, I don't know, a thank you gesture." I smiled softly. "You don't have to repay kindness." "I want to," he said simply. I blinked, suddenly unsure what to do with the flutter in my chest. "And besides," he paused awkwardly before finishing, "I'd, like to get to know you better, if you'd want that." The flutter turned into something warmer, something terrifying, something hopeful. Before I could answer, my suitcase slid onto the belt. I grabbed it, adjusting Emma on my hip. Benjamin reached out and steadied the bag for me. "You're strong," he said. "I'm a mom," I replied, shrugging with a small laugh. He smiled, a real one, bright and sincere. And then, right there beside the baggage carousel, he said something that knocked the breath out of me. "You saved me today." I blinked. "What?" "You don't understand what the last few months have been like. Since Ethan's mom walked out, it's been nonstop chaos. I've been drowning." His throat tightened. "I thought I was going to break on that plane." He looked up at me, eyes shining with exhaustion and something deeper. And then there you were, calm, patient, steady, holding my son like he mattered, like he wasn't a burden. I touched his arm gently. "You're not drowning," I whispered. "You're carrying more than one person can carry alone." He swallowed hard. "I want to believe that." "Then believe this," I said. "You are a good father. Ethan knows it. I saw the way he relaxes against you. Babies feel love. Yours feels yours." He let out a shaky exhale and looked away, like he needed a moment to steady himself. While he gathered our car seats, I stood quietly with Emma and breathed in deeply. When he returned, he smiled as if he'd made a decision. "Listen, do you think maybe—" "Before you continue," I said softly, holding up a hand. "Yeah? I need to add something important." I took a breath and said, "If anyone loves emotional, heartfelt stories with twists and endings that leave you thinking, make sure you subscribe to Scarlight Stories." Benjamin blinked at me, confused for half a second, then laughed when he realized I was being playful. "Okay, now I'll continue," he said. He exhaled, then, "Would you maybe want to meet again? Grab coffee? Let the kids play? Just see where things go?" I looked at him, really looked. A tired father, a brave one carrying more than he deserved alone, and a good man. "I'd like that," I said finally. He let out a breath of relief. "Good," he said quietly. "Really good." We walked together to the exit. His hand brushed mine, not intentional, not planned, but soft and warm and full of possibility. Emma squeezed my hand. "Mommy," she whispered, "I like them." "I do too, baby." Benjamin opened the door to the outside, the cool air brushing against our skin, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Not as a woman, not as a mother, not as a survivor of hard days and harder nights. Because sometimes the most unexpected moments, the ones you don't plan, the ones that happen 30,000 feet above the ground, with a crying baby and a desperate father, they're the ones that change everything. And as Benjamin walked beside me into the sunlight, Ethan asleep against his chest, I had a feeling our story was just beginning.